Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Lost in Space Season 3, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we are back with the kids in the aftermath of, I guess the planet didn't look like this 20 years ago, obviously, but you have, Grant asking what happened to the planet, and it's still unknown. But the fact is they're focusing on it must mean that it must come up, it still must surface and come back in some shape or form, because whatever it was something big to not only lead to the entire erasure, the extinction of that species, but also to do that to the planet. So whatever the case may be, they've got their plans of like, right, now that everybody's here, everything's ready, we're going to warp drive. There is still a little bit of awkwardness between Judy and Grant about, she's like, right, what I did, he was like, no, that was past tense, it's fine, let's just move on. Because I think it is a thing of like, right, having your daughter kind of, I guess it's just like, right, you're supposed to be adult in the situation when she's the one that kind of ends up saving the day more so than you. Because I think it just, on some level, it's got to undermine your skills to some, it's get you to some level, because you're like, right, I got this, but then like, to have Judy kind of doubting you, like, there's a little bit of a thing, like, he doesn't hold it above her head, so it's something like where he was just like, no, because he made it clear, like, before, like, when you're going in space, you kind of have to, like, get rid of everything in your mind, and it's like, yeah, any, like, pride, anything like that, I got to put it aside, we're all okay, that's all that matters. So I think that's all that kind of gets chalked up to me. But I did like the back and forth between Judy, Will, and Penny, where like Judy's like, all right, Will, talk to the robot about getting everything ready. Penny, talk and make sure the 97 kids are okay. She's like, well, I have 97 jobs and Will has one. It's like, well, you're better with the kids than Will is. And he's like, hey. And she's like, well, yeah, you're kind of intimidating. Penny's like, have they met Will? It's like, well, he's with the robot, and so... I forgot how the conversation came up about her having a strong boyfriend or whatever, and then Will's like, now, which one was your strong boyfriend again? And she's like, that's why I can't stand both of you. I was like, it's kind of a cute, like, little back and forth amongst the siblings, and I like that. But Will talks to the robot while Penny's checking in on everybody, and I think it is very nice that it is, out of anyone, it is Penny, because she is the one that's kind of like, to an extent, I'd say she's kind of the social butterfly. Even though she's kind of awkward, I think she's kind of come out of her own shell in many different ways. So, like, she is communicating with everyone, making sure everyone's okay. Especially the little boy, Noah. He has, like, a little pamphlet for Alpha Centauri. It's like, you're not supposed to have anything loose while they're, like, going off. But he's like, yeah, if I ever get nervous, my mom was like, look at that. Think about the goal and focus on it. And she tucks it into his pocket and being like, well, let's make sure it doesn't fall out again. But Will talks to the robot about, like, well, we got to figure out, he's like playing the languages, and he's like, the cipher, essentially, language cipher or whatever it is that he picked up, and he's playing it for the robot, but the robot doesn't quite know it, because he's like, because in Will's mind, it's like, right, if maybe one of these could, be how the extinct species control the robots, and if we do that, maybe we can stop this. But because he had talked to the robot, it's like, you might not know what I mean about programming. It's about, and he kind of laid it out, and the robot's like, I understand. But it's like, right, we'll talk about this problem when we get to Alpha Centauri. And Penny's like, what problem? He's like, no, it's a robot thing. She's like, don't pull the robot cord. But before the robot could do anything, we now see why SAR kept the robot. I thought it was going to, like, just, like, take his spark, and it's like, no, he's using the robot, because he's using Scarecrow, because Scarecrow and the robot connected through Will, and he's doing that same thing, even to the point it's taking control of the robot. Because I guess it could have killed Will, but maybe in that moment, it's like SAR doesn't want Will just dead. He needs Will for whatever purpose. Like I said, I've thrown it out there in the previous episodes, my speculations about what it is, but we'll have to see. But in that moment, SAR taking control of Scarecrow and using that connection to control robot shows them, it's like, it's not, oh, we're not going to Alpha Centauri, showing them the danger system, showing them the planet, showing them where their parents are, but then also showing them, like, oh, our ship is nearby, so we're ready to pounce. So, and in that moment, because it's not just them seeing this, everyone, all the kids in there are seeing this. And so in that moment, like, sadly, no longer needing him, SAR kills Scarecrow, and it's like, damn, dude, that sucks. And in that moment, like, the robot start looking down, and Will's like, Scarecrow's gone, isn't he? He's like, I'm sorry. And just like, now the conversation is, well, they want to go and help their parents, but Judy's pointing out, but it's obviously a trap. But it is the situation of, like, regardless, like, Penny's with VJ on wanting to go help their parents in some shape or form, and the little boy Noah is like, I want to help. I vote for saving our parents, because Will's in that complicated thing because he's not saying anything, because it's like, right, we don't know we know that Sar wants the robot and he wants the engine. That's all they're thinking of. But Will knows it's more than that, but he doesn't want to say anything, because it's like, if he lets them know, in particular Judy and Penny, if they found out Will was what he wanted, they'd never let him out of his sight. He'd never be able to do what he wants to do. That's why he's still keeping quiet about that element to it. But the boy Noah wants to save his parents, but Judy's like, because she explained it also to Penny, it's like, I was given one job, like, Mom and Dad wouldn't want us to go back. Dad gave me a command to look after you guys. They would want us, first and foremost, to get to Alpha Centauri, which is actually what they want. That's their side of things when they find out about the aliens approaching. So, John, because it's like, what do we do? Like, they have no weapons to fight against them. It's like, we literally threw everything at them last season, and it still wasn't enough. So what hope do we have to stopping them? But for John, it's like, we act as that buffer. We destroy everything on the ship. We delete everything that connects to Alpha Centauri. We might not be able to make it, but we can assure these robots can't follow our children to their homes. So it's like, at the very least, we can't save ourselves, but at least there's people we could still save. And everyone on board was like, right, they nodded along, because it's like, right, if we can't live, that's the whole reason why we send our children off, just to make sure that they would survive. So we're doing it again. We may not live this situation, but at least we'll know our kids will live. Because even John and talked to Maureen about it, it's like, the not knowing was the worst part, but at least we know our kids are okay. Everyone's kids are okay, so we can do this knowing, like, with our heads held high, and knowing, like, and as they were getting rid of stuff, Maureen was like holding on to Penny's book, and she's like, no, I've read it 4 or 5 times. I know there's not a single word in here about Alpha Centauri, so it doesn't need to be destroyed. She's like, if if this is going to be the end, let me. And John's like, I understand. It's like, right, she wanted something to hold on to her children, even at the end. If they had to get rid of everything, at least let me hold on to this. So obviously it's frustrating for Dawn too, because it's like, right, like, every crazy plan, everything we've ever been through, if we don't even make it to Alpha Centauri, then what's the whole point of hoping for it? And Ava's telling him, like, the hope was the point, Hope is the entire point, to keep that alive, and that hope lives with those kids. Like, we might not make it, we may not see it, but the hope for those kids to go on and to continue, that's what's important, that's what matters. And so she ends up hugging Dawn. It's and even Noah's dad is thanking him. He's like, hey, John, thank you and Maureen, because you, our kids have a chance. He's like, no, it isn't just on us, it's everyone. It's us together that made sure our children are okay, So they're doing everything, shredding, putting stuff in the chariots to burn. While on the same side, on the flip side, we had the kids having that conversation about, because it's like, right, it's a trap, and this isn't what our parents would want. But then, it's like, we don't have anything that could go up against them, because those robots will come out of full force. So we don't have anything else. And then Samantha stands up. She's like, I'd like to try. And VJ says he does too. And Liam and Penny and everyone else, one by one. And in that moment, I think Will's just kind of like, he wants to do what he can too, but he's also like, the best option I can do for everyone is to come up with this plan. So Will's shouldering a lot of this on his own. Even Penny's like, you don't have to, like, you feel like it's on you to make everything right, but it's like, no, like, we can come up with something together. And even Judy has a moment with Grant about, what to do in this situation. And Grant was basically saying, you are the captain, so it doesn't matter how many hands are lifted up, like how many you can whether to go or not, it's 100% your choice, because you are the captain. But either way, whatever choice you make, I know it will be the right choice, because at the end of the day, you're the captain, and it's your decision to decide what you want to do. Because I think, it's a captain's position to try and find something that is going to be kind of the best answer and the best for everyone. But truth be told, abandoning a parent, like, it's not something Judy wants to do. It's not something any of the other kids want to do. So I think it is a thing of like, right, like, doing this, going to Alpha Centauri wouldn't be for the best, because those kids would be heartbroken knowing like their families are in danger. So Judy's talking to Penny and Willow, like, together we'll come up with an idea, and Will comes up with one. And in that moment, he when he was alone in the room, he records his goodbye, because he set up a plan, but it's not the real plan. It's kind of part one, but there's a part two to it that he didn't tell Penny or Judy about. This part where he's going to sacrifice himself, but he makes a final like recording, being like, "Yeah, this is my final transmission." I think, without not really jumping ahead, but I think that recording is going to get found next episode. Maybe, but some point soon that recording is going to be found. They're going to be like, "Wait, what was this about, Will?" And like, because we'll get to it when we get to it, but no one knows what he had planned. Even Smith didn't know fully what he had planned, what he was going to do. She had some idea, but even then, it's like, so that's definitely going to be interesting. But, they enact their plan, and the Jupiter shows up. The portal opens just as the parents had all accepted their fate. And the rift opens, and the Jupiter comes through. But it was a distraction to draw away the ship. And in the process, they all arrive on the Fortuna. They dock and everything. And everyone's reunited. And even I was like, is Will not going to be there? Like, is he? But it's like, no, he's not on the Jupiter, because he's like, no, I have to make sure everyone gets through the rift first before we even get to that. So the fact is, everyone's reunited, and even Penny makes the point, like, right, promise we'll never get split up again. And notice who doesn't say anything. Judy doesn't either, so it's not too out the wall, but like, it's just kind of like, let's enjoy this moment. It's like an okay moment, but it's like in the sense of like, Maureen and John are just like, okay, but Judy doesn't say anything, so no one really says anything when Will, no one sees the look on his face when because he knows he can't make that promise. He doesn't plan on making that promise because he won't be able to keep it, so. But now that the kids are here, now that all the families are reunited, it's like, all right, let's get everybody on the Jupiters. We need to make sure, because their Jupiter was on autopilot, was kind of the whole point, to lead the robots away. So when the time comes, like, everyone's going to these different ships. Obviously, Maureen sees Grant, and it's like, whoa, that's going to be complicated. Granted, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. They don't have to worry about that complication, because it's like, right, there was too much going on to deal with that, right? And she's like, right, if I knew that you were, he's like, yeah, it's like, I didn't find the kids, they found me. And it's just like, right, there's a lot to explain on that front, which John, maybe they felt like it would have been too much, but I don't know if John saw, because there definitely wasn't a scene of John and Grant meeting, because that would have been like weird and awkward, especially for him, because it's like, oh, me and Maureen were a thing 20 years ago, and that feels like just yesterday for Grant. Before Maureen, that was literally a lifetime ago, so that's the complicated thing. I'm like, but like I said, they don't have to kind of worry about that for right now. But as everyone's doing their thing, Will explains what he has planned to the robot. It's like, right, we're going to open the rift, make sure that everyone gets through. And the moment everyone gets through, we're going to close the rift. And it's like, the robot's like, danger. And he's like, yes, but it'll be on us. And he's like, that way it'll be just you and me, because that way Star will have everything he wants. He'll have the engine, because that engine won't be on its way to Alpha Centauri. He'd have no reason to go after the others, because I'm here and the engine's here. So you're like, man, time and time again, that little kid just keeps proving himself time and time again. Because I think it's also because, that was a conversation about him when he was younger, of like how like scared he was, but now he's not afraid anymore. And it's like, right, I'm willing to sacrifice myself. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my family in this once and for all. So that he ends up filling the robot in on that plan. And he also needs the other piece to his plan, Smith. And I love that when he wakes her up, she's like, oh, we on Alpha Centauri? He's like, yeah, there was a complication. She's like, oh, really? Like, I should have known. And he was like, hey, you're not a 10 to 16-year-old, but you were still on the ship anyway. And she's like, fair enough. He's like, cool, wake up, because I need you to distract my family and stuff like that as I'm planning, because everyone else goes through the rifts, and it's just up to them. And of course, Dawn is with the Robinsons, because I did love this sweet reunion where she's like, hey, look at you, kind of in charge. And he's like, really? That coming from you, Captain Robinson? Or is it Dr. Robinson? Which one? She's like, it's just Judy. And he's like, okay. And they hug, and I'm like, yeah, it's really sweet. Yeah, everyone's getting to work, because she's like, yeah, seeing Dawn in such a responsible managerial role, But aside from that, I love it when it's like, when Smith is waiting, and just like Maureen or John are like, wait, what? Maureen's like, I saw your. It's like, well, it's like, how did you survive? It's like, well, and then Penny was like, yeah, she basically snuck aboard the Jupiter, and it's like, well, yeah, like, you know, it's like, oh, like, I gotta thank you, Maureen. If it wasn't for your like little safety hatch, I wouldn't have made it. You know, it's like, luckily, I'm very bendy. And so Will is planning on trying to enact his plan, because they're looking like, oh, where is Will? And he gets onto the Fortuna, but the problem is reinforcements show up. And in that moment, like, they're closing in, but Will starts playing the recordings, and luckily one of them does work, and it causes two of the ships to crash into each other. They're like, oh, snap, that worked out. Because I think Sar was busy on the Jupiter, that was on autopilot. So he was so busy on that. But sadly, before like Will could enact his plan, the Fortuna opened up and his dad grabbed him from the other side. So you're like, yep, that didn't work out. And even because once again, that thing of like Smith, what she was about to do to Judy, she was about to bash Judy's head in last episode, not kill her, but knock her out at the very least. But she didn't last second. This is that situation again of like, right, circumstances are preventing you from doing it. You're participating in doing a bad thing, but circumstances come about that stop you from doing said bad thing. So it's like, right, you were distracting the family while Will went off and did his thing, but now, and she's like, oh, hey, glad of you to join us. So it's like, yeah, you kind of inadvertently didn't have to worry about it, but you're like, all right, now we're off the Alpha Centauri. So it's like, right, get the portal open, let's go. So Will's kind of disappointed because like, damn, the longer I'm with my family, the more they're in danger. It's already bad enough, like he blames himself for like everyone else being in danger, but even more so now when it's like, right, now the whole point of this was so my family wouldn't be in danger. But partway through the warp, lo and behold, who's on the tail? It's like, we can't let him go to Alpha Centauri. And John's like, robot, take us anywhere, somewhere, anywhere. Dude, like, I had to rewind. I was like, that looked beautiful. That shot of, like, the robot just swinging his arm and the camera. I was like, dude, once again, I'm not a cinematography nut, special effects, whatever the case may be. That just cinematically, that scene looks so beautiful, and it's just like, oh, and like I said, the spinning camera to it too. It's just like, that's the color of it. Just like when he's like, you know, got the star map open basically and did that. I was like, that's so beautiful. Like, holy crap, that's a moment you just want to. Like I said, I had to rewind it to play it again. I was like, oh, that looks so good. And we have no idea where the Robinsons are now, but it involves them crashing down on a planet. Granted, the others made it their way. Everyone else made it to Alpha Centauri, but obviously the Robinsons didn't call in and just like, no, where are they? Lost again. But obviously they're crashing down. Obviously Smith wasn't too happy about the whole not going to Alpha Centauri thing. She was like, wait, what? But, like, everyone has to eject. It's like, but we'll lose to Jupiter. He's like, we'll lose a lot more if we don't. So it seems like everyone, and part of me's wondering, did Will actually eject? Because I didn't count the ejections, but Smith, John, Penny, and maybe Will. We know that Judy and Maureen weren't able to eject because their seats got stuck. And Maureen's like, it's okay, I'm here, Judy. And just in that moment, potentially, when it comes to impact. That's why I'm like, I don't know if Will's still on the ship. We know that the robot was still on the Fortuna, I believe, which we also have that one of their alien ships is crashing down with them in this moment. So one planet after another, which is so fascinating, because I'm about to think like, and you know, it's like, right, they usually end up on one planet per season. We've already jumped to two, because you know, yeah, it's pretty much, well, technically season 2, because the planet that the Robinsons were on, as well as like the planet that like the Resolute and the Jupiter were near in season 2. So it's like there's at least but it's just like, so it's kind of the same principle, because the kids were on a different planet, and I mean technically like they only went down to get stuff from the Resolute, but you get what I'm saying. So regardless, I'm putting my wandering mind aside. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Like, does like Robot come through and save Judy and Maureen before then, or is it just they crash and luckily they're okay? Like, what's going to happen in the aftermath? Because part of me was wondering, like, did Will actually eject? Like I said, I didn't count all the ejections. Once again, I'll get these answers immediately when I start the next episode after this recording finishes, but still, I'm excited to see where everything ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. I'm curious what's Will going to do now that he's stranded here with his family, with the aliens there, and not just them, like any future reinforcements will follow them here too, since they have some robot guides. Granted, SAR won't be able to connect to him now that Scarecrow's dead, so he won't be able to find him that way, but once again, there are already robots here, so you just have to, they have to send out a signal being like, yo, we're here, so we'll see how that all plays out going forward. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.